Welcome to This Week in Real Estate with Jonathan Harmon and Bryan Nale, your local experts on all things real estate in Middle Tennessee. Listen in as they discuss the current state of the market, the latest trends, and have a little fun while doing it.
Not only is my thanks.
We do want to say the opinions voiced on this podcast are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individuals. All right, y'all, welcome back. It's on you, Jonathan.
Okay. Welcome to This Week in Real Estate. It's Jonathan Harmon with Keller Williams. Sorry, I was not expecting that quick. And, of course, we've got Bryan Nale right over here.
There he is.
With Primus Mortgage. He was supposed to say that, but he didn't take my cue.
I didn't pick up on the cue.
Yeah, we're getting thrown in. This is going to be great. So our special guest today is us, and we're pretty excited about that. We've got lots and lots and lots and lots of things to talk about. Here's the thing. So schedules are a funny thing, right? And sometimes schedules conflict with each other, and that
Sometimes
happens.
They change.
Sometimes
things come up.
and people get flat tires, and people get hung over, and there's all kinds of things that happen. So who knows? So sometimes we just got to pivot and do what we do.
And pivot we do.
Pivot we do. Indeed. Indeedy doodle, as Ned Flanders would say. All right. You did the pre-recorded new intro. So we're also flying headphoneless, which freaks me the heck out. I can't hear
Maybe
what's going
it's
on.
not such a great idea.
Yeah, I don't know. And anyway, and
look
y'all say that
cooler.
I complain too much.
I think
so.
we look cooler without the headphones, but it is nice to
Oh, I don't. I need to cover as much of this
need to hear
Chrome
the-
Dome up as I
hear
can.
the stuff that's going on in the background.
All right, we're going to launch right into let's do this. This episode's theme and focus. So we've got several important items to talk about in headlines. And then also there's some pretty big stuff coming down the pike that we're going to look at in our market mover segment as well. And I'll tell you, if it's okay with you, Bryan, I am making a little bit of a pivot. I think I'm going to take one of my headline items, and I think that's going to be part of what we talk about during kind of that guest segment, because I really want to talk about agency and interpreting some of the clickbait headlines that are in the news right now.
That sounds like a wonderful pivot.
And there's some stuff in the news that y'all, at best, it's ignorant, okay? And at worst, there's something kind of salacious behind it. And you kind of got to wonder, they always say, follow the money, right?
Who's wagging the tail?
Exactly. And how did some of these things come about, and why are they what they are, and why are we experiencing some pretty blatant misinformation about the way things have always been, and then also about the way things are going to change, and they're just plain false. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today as well. Sound good to you?
Sounds good.
Okay. So segment one, we're going to talk about the headlines. And it was on the Greater Nashville Realtors website, and I think I said I was going to move this down to market movers.
Yeah, but
didn't I?
you moved the other thing down to the guest segment.
Oh
so
my gosh, we're moving things all over.
We're all
I've
over.
pivoted so much that I'm back where I started. It's weird. But anyway, so there's some interesting things going on right now, and this is a headline. I mean, I'm looking at the article, but there's also some market movement things to watch in this, and specifically, here in Middle Tennessee, especially here in Rutherford County, we touch Nashville. So as things happen in Nashville, we do feel those repercussions. We do feel those ripples down here in Rutherford County, and right now in Nashville, there are transit-oriented bills, like mass transit-oriented bills. There are zoning bills, and there are codes reform bills, all on the table at the same time. And the thing is, as Nashville grows and we have more of the, as we like to call them, tall skinnies, going up, and we have, tighter rules on short-term rentals, more hotel rooms being built that is only going to make that lobby to tighten up on short-term rentals even tighter. And we see all this stuff happening, and codes get tighter for, allegedly for the consumer's protection. But again, there's always motivation behind that as well. And we start to look at stuff like mass transit. Mass transit takes up space. And so you have a finite amount of space in Nashville, and then also in Davidson County, and then in the MSA. There's a lot of things that are on the table right now. And if they are forward thinking and they see how these things will impact the future of Nashville, then 30 years from now, we look back at this moment and go, that was awesome, right? If they're good old boy, stuck in the ways we've always done it, and, we're opposed to change, and, Nashville's full, don't move here anyway, we're going to look back 30 years and go, what the hell were we thinking?
Yeah,
we had an opportunity.
Nashville's going to grow whether those folks want it to or not.
That's it.
There's just so much at stake. There's so many companies that want to be here. There's so many people that want our tax structure and that we have in Tennessee. So that growth's not going to stop. And I really hope that they get this right. It's a like you said, it's a great opportunity for us to kind of set the course for the future and make the IT city more of a stable, long term. Great place to be.
It's like phase 2 of itness, right? Like we're done with phase 1 right now.
Right.
We've established it. We're on the map. Our skyline. I'm sure everybody's seen that meme going around about how the skyline's changed in the last 12 years or whatever, where It's got a picture of it. I mean, it's insane, right? And so now, how do we keep going forward, honoring? We can't erase all of the past, which is what I feel like. As somebody that's been here my whole life, it's like, man, what about, and we start listing off Ernest Tubb and Rotiers and so many of these places,
those institutions.
Yeah, they hurt my heart. Arnold's, places like that. How do we not erase all of that stuff that made Nashville awesome, and replace it with, Kid Rock and whoever the hell else has all these places down on.
Well, I think what we need to decide too, what Nashville is going to decide while they're doing this is, do they want to be Las Vegas, New Orleans, Bourbon Street, but with country music, or do we want to be more of a progressive city that's going to have those opportunities for you to come down here and have a good time and party, but also
are we party or are we cosmopolitan?
Yeah, what are we going to be? So these are going to be key decisions that help drive that direction.
Yeah, I agree. So that'll be something to watch, and it's also a good read. So if you get a chance, go onto the Greater Nashville Realtors website and look up this article by Adam Myers. It was published on March 8th. So some good stuff to contemplate, and it helps you participate especially if you're a Nashville resident or a Davidson County resident. It'll help you participate. What you got in headlines, bro?
So last week we had some big data that came out towards the end of the week. Jobless claims on Thursday came out. The estimate was 218,000 new jobless claims, but there was only 209,000. Then consumer sentiment on Friday came in at 76.5 versus an estimate of 76.9. So I want to talk about that jobless claims a little bit, because that's it's one of those where, hey, we think, hey, there's 9,000 fewer jobless claims than the estimate, so that's good for the economy. Well, that means people are working. It's not good for inflation. So between that and the producer price metrics coming in both higher year over year and higher month over month, really gave us a lot of concern. And I think what we saw on Friday, there was a delayed reaction to it. At first, it was kind of like, okay, it was worse, but not as bad as it could have been. And on Friday we saw okay, this wasn't a good report, and on Thursday and so on Friday we saw rates really kind of run away from us just a little bit. And so what's going to happen, I think, is that was kind of pricing in hopefully a little bit of cushion for what the Fed does this afternoon. So as we move over into market movers, Trent. So the Fed is meeting today, and they I'm getting the sense that The market has been too optimistic for 3 rate cuts this year and has gone ahead and in advance. We always know that like what the Fed doesn't necessarily drive the rates. It's the anticipation of what the Fed's going to do. Sometimes we'll kind of move the market in advance of their actual moves. And I think there was so much optimism that inflation was heading in the right direction coming out of 2023 and into 2024 that the market's gone ahead and said, hey, inflation's good. Even though the Fed hadn't done anything yet, the market was kind of like, it's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. So put the cart before the horse, and now we've got growth. We've got an economy that's still hot, and the Fed's going to meet today, and I think they're going to have some pretty hawkish comments. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they don't come out and say some things that really rattle their sabers and get the market kind of spooked about the ability for them to cut interest rates 2 to 3 times this year, like we all hope they'd be able to. I think they're going to try to put a little fear in the market.
Well, we said this so many times. The reality is, if you want inflation under control, right? There's so many different factors when we talk about the health of the economy. Inflation is one of those factors. Interest rates is another factor. You know, all these indexes are other factors, et cetera. But if you're specifically looking at inflation, then the only way that inflation is going to get under control is there's got to be some pain. And so when we see jobless claims come in lower, even if it's just a little bit lower, it means that we're not, how do you say this, adequately hurting in order to pull that inflation back. And that sounds horrible to say it. And in a vacuum, that is horrible to say. But what is it? What metric is it that you're trying to manipulate, right?
Right, and looking at the producer price numbers, if the producers are charging more for their materials, then that means by the time it gets to the end consumer, the prices are going to be higher. It's going to drive the consumer price index up. So all these things continue to, I think, telegraph to the Fed that, hey, now's not the right time to cut rates. We're not on track to get to 2%, and until they feel like we're there, they're not going to cut rates. And so while we all kind of came into this year thinking that was going to happen this year, I think today's going to be a moment where we look back at what they have to say and say, well, they read those tea leaves with the actual data that's come out so far this year. And now the year's young, it's still March, but the data that's come out so far this year doesn't give them any reason to think that they're going to be able to lower interest rates in the near term.
Well, let me ask you a pointed question, and this occurred to me. So I'm looking at your numbers right here on the sheet for our notes here, and consumer sentiment report expected at 76.9 came in at 76.5, right? Producer price month over month was expected at 0.2%. Instead, it was 0.3%, right? These are seem right. Even the 218 jobless claims, and it came in at 209 as a percentage. It's not a huge number, right? So my question is, really, right? And I know you can only answer for Bryan Nale, right? Do lenders actually really want to drop rates? I mean, honestly, right? If you are an institutional lender, a big lender, do you actually want to drop rates? And because to me, this seems like small news, right? But it seems like a big deal.
So I'm going to answer that question. It's not necessarily what lenders want to do. Lenders just react to the market. We have to sell the mortgages on the secondary market, right? So it's what's going to attract investors to buy our mortgage-backed securities versus buying other safe investments.
So then do those investors want it? Because I mean, like as of right now, it's not tracking with the typical indicator, right? That 10-year.
I don't know that they care as much. They just want to get the best return they can get, whether that's mortgage rates or that's bonds or municipalities, whatever they think they can get the best return in a safe way is really what they want. And I don't know that they really care that much. Now, the banks and lenders, I think a lot of us are probably, and again, I'm speaking for me, but we're in the camp that we'd like to do more loans. We'd like our volume to go up. And so to do that, we would like to see rates go lower. So I think that...
But is there anybody that's lending money that wants to see 3% interest rates again?
No, I don't know that. I think if we feel like rates go to 3%, we're back. We're just, throwing embers into an already hot, tank of gas. So I don't know that we want to see that return, but I think that we would like to see something stable in the 5s. Personally, that's what I'd like to see, some stability in that 5% range. I think the market's already started to kind of adjust to where rates have been. And you see that with some of the news that's coming out with inventory and just multiple offers. I'm hearing more and more of that. We're also starting to see appraisals come in low, which is kind of spooky a little bit.
So that means appraisers are starting to feel like we're going to see that. Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, to answer your question, do lenders want rates to move lower? I would say, yeah, we do, just from a volume standpoint. But really what we're trying to do is sell the mortgages that we write. And so for us to be able to do that, we have to be in the market. We can't be out of that. So that's really what it's going to boil down to.
Gotcha. All right. So my other market mover right now is just the election cycle. And I'm going to be real brief about this. And here's the deal. Everybody has their own barometer on what they think is going to happen, right? And so if you talk to somebody on one side, they say, well, if such and such gets elected, everything's going to fall apart. And then you talk to somebody that's on that side, and they say, well, if such and such gets elected, everything's going to fall apart. And since we're split almost 50-50 through the country, what happens in every election cycle, and this is the fourth one I've been through as a real estate agent, presidential election, that is, everybody just waits. And so everybody's a little nervous about what it is. And then what happens is November 5th, November 6th, November 10th, whatever, everything happens. Everybody's like, and then they go right back to business. Yeah. And it's happened every single time. So just watch that. And the thing is, as the mud gets thicker that they sling, the more hesitant folks are going to be.
Makes a lot of sense. What's your shiny penny for this week? Give Trent a second there now.
So the shiny penny this week is it's actually kind of contrary to what I just talked about. I've made a bunch of prospecting calls over the last week to 10 days. And there's a lot of folks, and I've received some calls as well. There's a lot of folks that American dream is still alive. And what's cool is there's a lot of people that I maybe helped with their first house or their second house. And now we're having conversations about how can I benefit in this current environment and maybe have a rental house and maybe, leverage some of what this almost windfall amount of equity that we've accumulated over the last 3 years, those kinds of conversations. And they're really thinking, a lot of the people that I'm interacting with right now are really thinking about not just what their next move is, but what's the smartest version of that next move, if that makes sense. And it's cool because it's not just, the savvy investor that I'm having that conversation with. It's a whole lot of people.
There you have it, people. The American dream is alive and well.
It is.
People still want to own homes. Interesting. You said that it's not just the savvy investor, and that's maybe a topic for us to dive into another time. But how do we see things shape up in the market as we get to more and more people leaving their departing residence as a rental and not putting it on the market? Because that doesn't help with inventory.
Yeah. Man, I'll tell you, here's the thing. They're following the lead of the institutional buyers that have been in our market now for several years. And the reality is those institutional buyers, when they've bought, almost whole neighborhoods, it feels like, there's two hedge fund companies that own 1% each, 2% of all of the homes in Rutherford County right now. Yeah. I mean, that's scary. And the reality is I'm of the mindset those houses will not ever come back into the market. Right. They're gone. Yeah. They should not even be included in house inventory anymore. Those are actual just rental units forever. Right. And we can talk about how they would do that at some other point. But I mean, it makes
if it
more
makes
difficult.
sense for BlackRock, then probably makes sense for Joe Evans down the street, right?
That's it.
Yeah. So that's going to be fun, because we talk a little bit about, watch the headlines, watch the tail that's wagging the dog, watch the the reason
Ask
that you're seeing
questions.
things. And I think that, as you mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to talk about some of that stuff in our special featured guest spot. Since we have a little bit of extra time, let's dive into that.
Yeah, let's do it. Featured guest. It's Jonathan Harmon and Bryan Nale. Let's welcome to the conversation us. So all right. So the bombshell headline as it's been
This is what
spun.
you've all been waiting for, to see how this is responded to on This Week in Real Estate.
Yes. And here's the thing. So let's start with this, okay? The headlines are way more sensational than what the reality of the situation really is. Okay, I'm just going to say it that way.
Get that out of the way.
Yep. NAR had a settlement, $417 million. Is that right? 417,
right.
71, 400 some odd $million. And they settled. It was a class action lawsuit, and it was basically with home sellers over the last however many years. And all the headlines are saying that because of this settlement, that the entire business model of how realtors have been compensated is being scrapped. And not only is it being scrapped, that because the cost to sell a home, now NAR is going to essentially require its members to lower the cost of selling, the commissions. And because of that, home prices are going to drop and houses are going to become more affordable.
I'd ask any homeowner out there, do you think that this got passed so you could take the same amount of money for your house, or sell it for less and come out about the same?
So that's
No, you want to make more money when you sell your house.
Same version, same question, ultimately different version is, okay, let's say that the commission to sell your house is going to be $24,000. Okay. And now all of a sudden it's cut in half, $12,000 more dollars, right? Number one, does the commission structure dictate the value of your home? No, the market does. And the market is set by the comps, the other homes that have sold. So if this is a $500,000 house, and now instead of you paying $24,000 to sell it, you're only going to pay $12,000. This is if, okay? Are you going to just automatically drop your house price to $488,000? The answer to that is absolutely not.
No.
Okay.
No.
100% you're not going to do that. I would never do that. Nobody in this room would do that. Nobody listening to this, none of you would do that.
No.
It doesn't make any sense.
That's a way better way to ask the question that I asked. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Nobody's going to do that. That puts more money in your pocket as the seller of the house. It doesn't mean that the home person buying your house is going to get it for less. Well, that's a good question.
And so here's the next piece of that is, but does it, right? Who ultimately pays the commission on the sale of a home? The buyer does, because that's who buys the home, right? So they've spun it like sellers have paid the commission this whole time. But the reality of it is that as values go up, and the way that values go up is that more houses get sold, it is a fact. There are countless studies that show that houses sell faster and at higher prices when they engage competent professionals, right? And so who sells the houses is the competent professionals. Now, I will tell you, are you capable of selling that house on your own? Yes. Yes, you are. You can write the contract. You can engage an attorney. You can do all those things on your own. But who's going to be better at it, right? I've done almost 1,000 transactions in my career, okay? You've done what? How many have you done?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
5? Personally, like bought and sold your own house.
Oh, yeah, 3.
Okay,
yeah.
There you go. And that's about average for your age, right? So who's going to be better at that?
Yeah.
And it's not a brag. It's just a fact, right? I can change the brakes on my car. I can watch a YouTube video, change the brakes on my car. It's going to take me all day long. I'm going to go to AutoZone 500 times because I'm not going to have the right tools, right? But if you've done it 800 or 1,000 times, you can do it in 45 minutes.
You know exactly what to do, and you've got the equipment and the tools to do it.
And how much am I going to pay you for that? Whatever you're asking,
well,
honestly.
And you made a really good point last week when this news hit. Man, those people, those realtors, a lot of times they just keep deals together because this is an emotional purchase. It's the largest purchase you ever make as a household.
It's on my list.
And golly, man, how many times have you seen a deal where it looked like it was going to come off the rails and the buyer was going to get cold feet and want to back out, or the seller was going to not refuse to do any repairs on an inspection? And next thing you know, you got two people who are both stubborn and butting heads, and they're emotionally invested in the outcome they want. And how many times have you seen these competent professionals be able to step in and get their side to see where the other side's coming from and negotiate through that stuff, and
or
everybody
even
comes
just
out as a winner?
Even just everybody take a deep breath.
Yeah, just
right.
Yeah,
just hang on a second. And sometimes those deals need to blow up.
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes,
yeah.
but discernment is important, right? And discernment comes with wisdom, and wisdom comes with experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the other thing I'll ask you is there so part of the problem is that there's accusations of price fixing, which is hilarious to me because I've never received a memo from NAR telling me what to charge. Never, not one time. Nope. Number one. And number two, what they're asking is for NAR to step in and start price fixing.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to reduce the price. Well, now they're going to dictate what I can charge. That's price fixing, people. So they've never done it before, but now we want you to do it.
Yeah.
In order to not do it, which is just bizarre to me. The other thing I'd ask is this. Is there a going rate in Murfreesboro for plumbers?
I have no idea.
There is. It's $100 to $120 bucks an hour.
Competition is going to charge. So
yeah.
You put
is there a going rate for attorneys? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Is there a going rate for your HVAC tech, for your mechanic? Mechanics use a freaking book that they dictate the hours.
That sounds
right?
like price fixing.
Like
right?
it's printed.
This job is supposed to take this amount of time, and I'm going to charge you based on that.
No matter what.
Not how long it actually takes me to do it.
Irrelevant, right? The difference is that if I charge $100 an hour for my plumbing service and you charge $120 an hour for your plumbing service, it's a $20 an hour difference, and it feels comfortable, right? If I charge 5% to list your house and you charge 6%, then our number differences are significantly smaller until we look at the dollar amounts and they're significantly larger. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the human brain looks at that very differently. Yeah. Right? We have fractions that we're looking at that end up with big numbers.
That's right.
As opposed to $20 here and $20 there and $20 here.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a big difference. The other thing is this. They said that there's no competition. There's all kinds of competition out there. There have been in our market for years now people that will put your house on the MLS for $500 and then you do everything else. That's always existed here. I can name 3 of them like that.
Yeah.
And one of them that I know does a pretty decent job if that's your speed, if that's more what you want. The other 2, not so much. But anyway, that's a whole other story. And then the last thing, and this is what's the scariest part about this, is the conversation is that this is going to make home buying more affordable, right? And so what that means is, again, is that seller going to drop the price? No, number one. So it's still going to cost the same for the house. But now the buyer is going to be on the hook entirely for that buyer agent compensation, which maybe they should be, right? And here's the thing. The way that the contracts have been written, they've been poorly explained. The buyer has always been on the hook for that. It's just that the seller and through the seller's brokerage have offered upfront co-broker participation or to pay. Okay, we've done a really poor job of explaining how that actually works contractually, but the reality is the buyer's always been on the hook for that. If they have a buyer representation agreement, they've always been on the hook. It's just been common practice for that to be co-brokered, to share in that as a concession. What's going to happen now, though, in my opinion, the unintended consequence is that a lot more buyers are going to be unrepresented if this is the way that it goes, and that's not good. Or they're going to go into it with that, and so they're going to pay the same price for the house and then turn around and pay their broker separately. So it's actually going to make it less affordable. I still say you follow the money and you look at the people that would be behind something like this, and it's the ones that are going to benefit the most from unrepresented buyers. And it's large new construction. It's
tech companies that call themselves real estate companies.
That's it.
And I think that's the biggest thing here. And that's and gosh, where do we get all of our information? From the internet. Well, who puts stuff out on the internet? Tech companies. Who drives these headlines? I mean, it's all right. It's pretty clear to me that that's what this. There's been organizations and companies that have wanted to disrupt the real estate industry for a long time, and they've been unable to do so because of the value of relationships and because of the value of local expertise
and face-to-face conversation
and accountability. When you say face-to-face conversation, I'm thinking accountability, and that there's some sort of accountability that one of my clients will have, and they can come into my office and say, "Hey, we missed our closing date. Why did you mess up? Why didn't you send the CD out to me on time?"
It's the reason that I refer people to you when they tell me that they're talking to Rocket Mortgage. Because I'm asking them, are you actually talking to someone?
Yeah. And so they've been unable to disrupt the market for a long time. So I said, well, if we can't do it on our own merits with our own services and our own skills, let's take a legal route to try to disrupt the market. And that's what I think is happening. So it'll be really interesting. I mean, you're gonna encounter, I think, a lot of home sellers who see this as an opportunity to save a little bit of money, and so they're gonna try to offer less to buyers reps, and they're going to.
That's already been happening, though.
Of course,
I mean that has shifted in the last year already.
This is going to add more
Sure.
fuel to that, right? So I think that what's going to happen is the market will decide to a certain extent. The market will decide how long those houses sit on the market compared to houses who take a different approach, sellers who take a different approach. I can't imagine being a selling agent now and not being able to put in what that broker compensation is going to be, because how many phone calls am I going to get?
Well, and not only that, but now you've got one more conversation to negotiate that honestly has nothing to do with the sale of the house. So it's going to slow that process down.
Right. So there's, I mean, in all of this, and then I don't even think the settlement's been signed off on yet. I mean, I think that's a rubber stamp kind of situation. So
Agreed.
I see a lot of people on Facebook saying, hey, it's not even final yet. Well, I mean,
It will be.
What are the odds that it's not stamped for approval? I think that it's pretty given that that's going to end up taking effect. So, I think the market's going to change from this. I do think there's going to be some change. It remains to be seen how much, and at the end of the day, as somebody who works with buyers, I don't hardly ever work with sellers, but as somebody who works with buyers, I do have some concerns. I'm worried about people buying a house, whether they're buying their retirement home or they're buying their first home or somewhere in between. Like you said, how many houses? I bought 3 houses. I'm 43 years old, and I'm in the business, so I know a little bit more than some people do. But a lot of people are going to be completely in the dark when you look at a home inspection. What's important, and what's just an easy fix that you can do, and you don't even need to negotiate for that.
And how do you get the people to do it? And how do you who do you
call?
know?
Who do you know
all
that can come out here and do this?
All the
and
value
trust
adds.
them to do it well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people depend on realtors for referrals and that's a great thing, because I'm going to do a great job for you because I count on you to keep continuing to use my name. And if I do a bad job, you'll stop using my name. So I've got a vested interest when the phone rings, whether I'm a plumber, an electrician, a painter, a lender. When somebody says, hey, Jonathan Harmon told me to call you, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you have a great experience.
That's it.
And so all of that, the downline of effect of taking buyers agents out of these transactions is going to be massive. At the end of the day, who's really going to hurt is home buyers. And if they're if you're reading that this is going to help home buyers, you're reading a headline that is, in my opinion, salacious and trying to speed this process up.
Yeah. So I would say that to sum that up is really ask a lot of questions about the headlines. Yeah. These headlines are bloody car wrecks. I mean, they are, let's show you the carnage the best we can.
Turn rubberneck this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's it. All right. Next segment.
That was fun.
That was fun. Let's see the picture. This is my favorite part of the show every time.
This.
Let's see this train wreck that I'm going to close my eyes until you tell me it's up on the screen.
No. Man, how many great places to put a poster up? I mean, you can put a poster here. You can put a poster there. I imagine you could probably put a poster on the other side. I want my Scarface poster here, my Led Zeppelin poster there. Like, my daughter can have her Taylor Swift poster on the other side.
I'm not going to lie. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I'm looking at. So is this like a partial, and it's got a seat, but the ceiling is, so there's like a gap?
Yeah. Let's just throw the refrigerator in the middle of the floor. It's a fridge cubby.
Huh. I mean, I guess it's better than sticking the fridge just out. Well, I mean, it is out in the middle, but at least it's like walled.
So the plumbing must come. I mean, it's got a water
It's got
and
an
ice maker.
yeah.
That doesn't mean that there's actually plumbing to it, but you'd imagine that there's a water line coming up through the middle of that floor.
And it's so tall. Get a bigger fridge.
You know what could have stopped this from happening? A buyer's agent that was going through it and a walkthrough early in the process of this home construction and said, hey, it looks like you've run the plumbing for the refrigerator to the middle of the living room.
I mean, this is This takes open concept to a whole new level. Okay.
So what's behind? Like, there's a closet back here? Is that where the refrigerator was supposed to be?
I bet that's a pantry.
That pantry is where there was supposed to be a refrigerator, and they put a pantry there instead of the refrigerator because they ran the plumbing to the wrong spot, and no buyer's agent was there to say, "Hey, fix this," and somebody is going to have to buy this house.
So if it were me, I would have come on the other side of where that pantry is and just run a wall over, and just closed off that open concept.
Yeah. It's hard to say that because we don't see the full 360 of the room.
I don't really care because this is horrible.
360 the fridge anytime you want to.
Just run around it. Oh, I ate another ho-ho. Run some laps.
Trent, Missy, I bet when y'all picked that picture, you didn't even know we'd be able to segue that back into the importance of a buyer's rep.
Importance of a buyer rep. That's it.
Every picture.
Oh, my goodness gracious. That's fantastic. Good job. Good find, y'all. All right. Pro tip today it's your turn, bud.
Yeah, my turn.
Pro tip. But just the tip of the pro tip.
Oh wow. I feel like we're gonna need an extra disclosure. Let me gather myself. All right, so loan preparedness. So, all right, if you're thinking that you want to buy a house at some point this year, whether you're waiting for rates to calm down, you think there's going to be a crash, or maybe you're just getting started, whatever the reason, if you want to buy real estate this year, there's some things that you can do right now to put yourself in better position to qualify for a mortgage and increase your purchasing power. So 3 tips. 1, pay down your revolving debt to 20 to 30% of the available limit. One of the major components of your credit score is what's called debt to credit ratio. And if you can take that, if you're close to 50%, 60, 70% of a $1,000 limit on a credit card, even paying that thing down $200 or $300 to get to 200 to 300 or 20 to 30% will make a big difference in your credit score. So do that with as many cards as you can. It's not the Dave Ramsey approach, but doing that with multiple credit cards would be more important than paying one off and then moving on to the next and paying the other one off. I'm a big fan of the debt snowball, but understand your season and understand what your goals are. And if homeownership and improving your credit score is a goal, this might help you get a better interest rate and get better terms. Deposit your mattress money. So the second quote, the second one, if you're sitting on some money in a safe at your house under your mattress, go ahead and put that in your bank because it needs to season. And depending on the loan program, we might need to look at as many as 2 bank statements,
or count on not using it.
Or count on not using it. But if your plan is to use that money, and for most people, that's what they're saving it for.
But Brian, it's just cash, dude.
Yeah.
Why can I not use cash to buy a house?
We have to source it. We have to know where it came from. Was it money that you borrowed from a relative that you're going to have to pay back to them? Is it money that you obtained from illegal, illicit activities? There's a lot of money laundering that happens through real estate. So we have to source all of our things. Now, lucky for you, we only need to look back at 2 statements. But what does that mean? That could be as many as 90 days worth of of activity, because if I go back and look at 2 statements, I'm looking at your statement from January here in March. And so if that deposit is on that January statement, then we're going to need to wait until enough time goes that all we have to look at is the February and March statement. So go ahead and make those deposits, get that money into your bank account. And hey, guess what? Banks are paying interest right now. So you can take that money and put it into a savings account, a money market account that's got a decent yield.
Right.
So you can earn a little bit of interest. That hasn't been the case for a long time. We talk a lot about these rising rates and where rates are now, but let's not ignore the depositors, the people who have certificates of deposit and nest eggs that have been in liquid assets that have been earning
savings
pennies.
Accounts that are paying 5% right now.
Yeah, you can actually make some money. So get that money into the bank. Last tip for the day, stay at your current job, or if you have an opportunity that comes along that's going to be one that you don't want to turn down, talk with your lender about what does it mean for me if I leave my job and go do this. It might be just fine, but it might be disastrous. So talk with your lender and say, hey, this is the opportunity that's on the table. Should I take this? Should I wait? And have a good plan for your employment. Because if you're changing industries completely and you're going to something that's going to, maybe there's an opportunity to start your own business. Well,
That could be problematic.
That could be problematic. Or maybe you're going to take a job that to you doesn't seem that different than what you're doing right now, but it's going to go from W-2 to 1099 in a consulting role. Man, now you're self-employed. We don't have any income for you until you file your taxes. So, before you either stay at your current job or if an opportunity is there, talk with your lender about what that opportunity is before you make the decision.
Can you delay it a month?
Yeah.
Those
absolutely.
kinds of things. Awesome. Hey, man, this has been a good show. We talked a lot about things that are going on. Talk a lot about headlines. And y'all, I'd say my recap item here is when you read the headlines, first question is, what's the motivation for this headline, right? Always ask yourself that question.
I think 90% of the time it's just to get you to read the article.
And yes. And so if that's the motivation, then if it's something that excites you in a good way or a bad way, either one, do a little more digging, and especially talk to folks that you trust that are in the know about whatever that topic happens to be.
So
right?
important.
And whatever it is, I don't care if it's real estate, mortgage, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, if you know somebody that knows something about that topic, ask them, hey, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah.
And have a conversation about it, right? Especially before you latch on to some, sensational headline.
Yeah.
That would be my takeaway for the day. Yeah. What, you got anything else?
I don't think so. Tune in to us next week on Wednesday. We'll be coming to you in that 10 to 10:30 range. And so keep an eye out for us. We'd love to have you come in and tune in to see what we talk about next week. I don't think we have a guest lined up, but we're going to be working on trying to get one because you've seen just the two of us banter for the last 2 weeks, and it's time for us to have a guest.
It is time to have a guest, although banter's not good, not bad.
No, I mean, especially between us, we're entertaining.
To ourselves at least.
Very average-looking guys that have good conversation.
That's it.
Trent, you want to take us out?
Yeah, you got your little thing. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to another episode of This Week in Real Estate with Jonathan Harmon and Bryan Nale, your go-to resource for all things real estate in Middle Tennessee. Be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. We will see y'all on the next one.
Now for the nitty-gritty. Primis Mortgage Company is a subsidiary of Primis Bank, a member FDIC. Primis Mortgage NMLS number 1894879, BK number 1042893, ML number 1894879. As always, all loans are subject to credit approval and product guidelines. Equal housing lender.